Hey everybody, I'm sure if we really wanted to, we could strike up quite a debate on when and how is the proper time to prune your fruit trees. I kind of like Paul's approach. Paul, the gentleman who's famous for the Back to Eden gardening method, said that he pretty much prunes whenever he strikes a fancy on it, whenever it feels right. And that's kind of the way I feel about pruning. It's not necessarily a matter of on this exact date or at this exact time of a specific season that's when you should prune. I think it's just a matter of when it feels right. And take that with a grain of salt if you prefer. But for what it is, we're going to do our pruning today, so let's go. All of our trees are from a company called Stark Brothers. This here is a cherry tree, a sweet cherry, and you can see that there's been some damage on it in the past, and almost all of the growth is on this side. So one of the most simple concepts of pruning is trying to keep a balance on the tree. You don't want all of your growth on one side or another, and you also want to leave room for air and sunlight to get through to as many of the branches or all of the branches so that you can get fruit production on those branches. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find some of these buds. They're going off in the correct direction so that I can get some growth back over to this side of the tree. Because right now, this is the only little guy I've got to work with. You know, pruning is one of those things that feels almost like you're merciless when you do it. Because you're sitting here looking at this small little twig and you're thinking, well, it's young and I need to leave it and let it grow and flourish. When the fact of the matter is, if you leave it and let's say I don't prune this, but I prune the heck out of this, this will have tremendous growth this year and this won't do much at all. You've got to prune to try to encourage the growth so you can get branches where you want. In my case, what I'm noticing here is I've got this little branch coming out and then another twig going this way. And then I've got another bud coming off this direction toward the camera. I think it'd be great to try to help balance out this tree if I could get this and this bud to develop into strong branches. So I'm going to prune right there at the top of this bud so that now I can encourage the growth off of this bud and this branch here. That's the general concept that we're just going to work with throughout the rest of the area. All right, I'm going to take you on a little handheld action for this one. I want you to see how I approach this tree. You can see up here on this branch I have a bud that goes off to the left, but a little bit further down on an outshoot from the same branch I've got a bud that's going off toward the right, if the camera focuses on it, to try to help fill in the right. And you can kind of see up here doing the same thing. Here I've chosen a bud that goes off to the left, but here I've chosen a bud that goes off to the right. And that's just basically the concept going all the way throughout this tree. Now this tree is already a bit off balance, and so we're trying to repair things. But let's go look at a few of the apple trees that are more evenly dispersed already. This is a Golden Delicious cultivar, and you can see it's pretty well shaped as far as being spread out. Now what we need to do is simply trim it back to encourage the new growth and to make sure that we continue getting spread out. Now these delicious varieties, Red Delicious and Golden Delicious, are known for having a really sharp crotch, meaning that instead of their branches spreading wide, they like to grow really close together, which is dangerous for the tree, especially when it starts bearing large amounts of fruit. So one thing we're going to pay attention to these apple trees is to make sure that we try to encourage areas where we can get the branches to be wide open. Another thing I'll mention to you is that I know for a fact that that is south, and that is where the sun is for me since we're in the northern hemisphere. And I want to try to make sure that as the sun travels across the sky that I'm getting light even to these branches way back here. And here's a good example where you can see these two branches are actually leaning on each other for the way they're growing. And when you have that, you just need to look for bud growth going in opposite directions below this. So for example, here I've got a bud that's coming out toward me, and over here I've got a bud that's going out this way. So if I were to cut back these two branches to those locations, Now these are going to grow off this direction and off this direction, and I now stop that from crossing. So let's finish this one up. Okay, we're going to up the difficulty a little bit with this apple tree. It too is a delicious variety. However, it has been double grafted. It has both red and golden delicious on it. And so what we need to do is make sure that as we are pruning, we are not pruning back just one of the varieties or completely eliminating one by thinking that we can take off an entire branch because we think it might not get enough sunlight, and come to find out we just cut off an entire variety of apple. So in this case, I know where the graft was and is, and I'm going to just be very careful with that. So let's move forward. You might notice we're a lot closer to the ground for this guy. I don't know what rootstock difference or what else might be happening, but this is also supposed to be a semi-dwarf, just like the other trees, but this is a Granny Smith. I'm not sure what kind of trouble it's run into, whether it was health or the rootstock that was used. I know we used the exact same soil mixture when we planted this, so I'm not sure what happened, but this guy is beyond dwarf. I don't know what else to say about it, but we're going to treat him just the same way. We're going to come in here and prune, and you can see in this case we have a lot of branches coming up. We're going to prune this guy back to make sure we can get a lot of light and air back inside of here. Interesting thing about the Granny Smith, this was the last apple tree to lose its leaves. I'm not sure if it normally is the late producer of the group. I haven't looked that up yet, but I just thought it was interesting. This is the last one to lose its leaves. So for what it's worth, I do have a little bit of method to my madness on why I prefer to prune in late winter just before the buds start coming back. Number one, I just cut off a lot of dead twigs, a lot of twigs that didn't make it through the winter. If I had pruned before winter, I may have ended up having some of the branches that I left on die, and then I would have had to prune again at this time anyway. So it made more sense to me to do that. Now, if you are wrapping your trees or don't live in an area where you have to worry about them being frozen, then maybe that's not a concern of yours. I also have waited until I don't think we're going to get another hard freeze this year. We may still dip down below 32, but I don't think we'll get below 26 Fahrenheit, and I think that the trees will weather through the rest of it and begin to blossom here pretty shortly. So that's another reason why I've waited till now. I think right now is the perfect time before they really start production, before they really start putting on leaves, but also after a chance for a hard frost. So I appreciate y'all watching. If you got any questions, comments, suggestions, or reasons on why you do it different, go ahead and leave it in the comments below so that everybody can see the many ways of pruning and make a decision for themselves. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.